March 2026 sits on every serious astrologer's calendar like a red flag. And Mrs. Becca Harmon, whose predictions have tracked with unsettling accuracy for 3 decades, says it's a month that will separate those who prepared from those who didn't. Not with a single catastrophic event, but with a cascade of shifts that change how we live, work, connect, and understand ourselves. Planetary alignments that haven't occurred in this configuration for over 80 years are creating conditions for transformation that won't wait for anyone's permission. Some will rise into it. Others will resist and struggle. Here's what's actually coming, and how to meet it consciously. Why March 2026 stands out astrologically. March 2026 isn't just another month in a tumultuous decade. It represents the convergence of multiple long-cycle planetary movements that astrologers have been tracking for years. When planets that move slowly through the zodiac, the ones that take years or decades to complete their journeys, when several of them reach critical positions simultaneously, the effect isn't additive, it's multiplicative. Each planet amplifies the others, and March represents exactly such a moment. Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus will form what astrologers call a T-square, a geometric configuration where 3 planets create tension that demands resolution. And when tension at the cosmic level demands resolution, it finds it through events in the human world. Changes that weren't possible before suddenly become inevitable. Structures that seemed permanent suddenly reveal their fragility. Mrs. Becca Harmon has been mapping this configuration for over 2 years, watching the slow approach of these planets toward their exact positions. And what stands out to her isn't just the alignment itself, it's the historical context. The last time these specific planets formed this specific configuration was in the early 1940s, and the world that emerged from that period looked nothing like the world that entered it. Systems restructured, power redistributed, assumptions shattered, and a new order, for better and worse, established itself. Now, astrology doesn't claim that the same events will repeat, but it does suggest that the same quality of transformation is available, the same magnitude of change, the same opportunity for humanity to reorganize itself around different principles, and the same risk that the reorganization could go in directions we didn't intend. What makes March 2026 particularly significant within this larger cycle is the speed at which events will unfold. Typically, astrological transits build gradually, peak, and then recede over months. But March compresses that entire sequence into weeks. The T-square forms, reaches exact degree, and begins to separate, all within a 30-day window. And that compression creates intensity. Things that would normally have time to develop, adapt, and integrate, they happen fast. Too fast for the usual mechanisms of denial and delay. And that speed, it's both the danger and the opportunity, because rapid change is destabilizing, but it's also clarifying. And for humanity at this particular moment, clarity might be exactly what we need most. Mrs. Becca Harmon reads the stars. When Mrs. Becca Harmon looks at a chart, she's not just reading symbols, she's reading patterns, correlations, historical echoes. She's cross-referencing current planetary positions against similar configurations from the past and noting what unfolded during those periods. Not to predict exact events, astrology doesn't work that way, but to identify themes, to understand what kind of energy is dominant, what areas of collective life come under pressure, what opportunities for transformation become available. And her reading of March 2026 is unambiguous. This is a month of reckoning, a moment when choices that have been deferred can no longer be postponed, when consequences that have been accumulating reach critical mass, when systems operating on unsustainable models finally hit their limits. The specific areas she's watching most closely are what she calls the structural pillars of modern life, the systems that underpin everything else. Economic frameworks, communication networks, institutional authority, social contracts. These aren't abstract concepts. They're the practical, daily realities that allow modern civilization to function. And all of them, according to the astrological indicators for March, come under extraordinary pressure. Not from external invasion or natural disaster necessarily, but from internal contradiction. From the gap between what these systems claim to do and what they actually do. Between what they were designed for and what they've become. And when internal contradiction reaches a certain threshold, systems either transform to resolve it, or they fracture. What Mrs. Harmon emphasizes repeatedly is that astrological predictions aren't deterministic. The stars don't control human behavior. They reflect and amplify energies that are already present. March's configuration doesn't create problems that don't exist. It brings existing problems to crisis point. And crisis, from the Greek word krisis, means decision point, moment of choosing. March forces choices, individually and collectively, and those choices determine what comes after. The stars show the pressure, show the timing, show the areas where transformation is most needed and most possible. But the actual transformation, the direction it takes, the wisdom or foolishness with which it's navigated, that's up to us. And right now, we're not showing a lot of wisdom. The planetary alignment nobody's prepared for. Here's the uncomfortable truth about March's planetary alignment. Almost nobody outside astrological circles is aware it's coming. Mainstream institutions don't track these things. Governments don't factor them into planning. Economic analysts don't include planetary positions in their forecasting models. And that lack of awareness means that when the effects start manifesting, people will be caught off guard. They'll react to symptoms without understanding the underlying pattern. They'll treat each event as isolated, rather than recognizing them as expressions of a larger wave. And that reactive, fragmented response, it makes the transition harder than it needs to be. Because the alignment isn't inherently destructive, it's transformative. But transformation resisted becomes destruction, and resistance born of ignorance is the most stubborn kind. The specific alignment that astrologers are concerned about is Saturn in Aries squaring Uranus in Cancer, while both form challenging aspects to Jupiter in Capricorn. And if that sounds like technical gibberish, here's what it means in human terms. Saturn in Aries puts pressure on leadership structures, demands that authority prove its legitimacy or lose it. Uranus in Cancer disrupts foundations, especially those related to security, home, and emotional belonging. And Jupiter in Capricorn amplifies institutional power, but also amplifies their flaws and failures. Put these three together, and you get a recipe for systems under maximum stress. Leaders who can't lead being exposed. Foundations people thought were solid, proving to be unstable. Institutions growing larger and more visible, precisely as their inadequacies become undeniable. It's a perfect storm of structural vulnerability. Mrs. Becca Harmon is particularly concerned about the timing within March itself. The alignment doesn't build gradually throughout the month. It spikes. There's a window of about 10 days, roughly mid-March, where all three planets reach exact aspect degrees simultaneously. And astrological effects are always strongest at exactitude. This means that whatever March brings, it concentrates in that particular window. And concentrated energy creates concentrated effects. Sudden shifts, rapid changes. Things that were stable on Monday becoming unstable by Friday. And the lack of preparation, the collective unawareness that this window exists, means that when things start moving, most people won't have frameworks for understanding what's happening. They'll just experience it as chaos, as everything breaking at once. And that perception of random, meaningless chaos creates panic, when actually, it's not chaos at all. It's pattern. But planetary alignments only tell part of the story. Ahead in this video, we'll explore exactly how March's pressure translates into tangible changes in the economy, in how we communicate, in what happens to the social fabric we've relied on, and most importantly, Who's positioned to navigate this successfully and who isn't? This is where the abstract becomes concrete, economic structures facing their breaking point. The economic systems that have governed global commerce for the past several decades, they've been operating on borrowed time. Not borrowed money, though there's plenty of that. Borrowed credibility, borrowed trust, borrowed belief that they can continue functioning the way they have been. And March 2026 is when that borrowing comes due. The astrological indicators point specifically to financial systems, currency stability, and the fundamental relationship between value and money coming under scrutiny that can't be dismissed or postponed. Not through predictions of specific crashes or collapses. Astrology doesn't work with that level of specificity, but through the recognition that systems built on perpetual growth in a finite world eventually meet their mathematical limits, and March appears to be that meeting. What makes this particularly significant is that economic instability doesn't stay contained in the financial sector. It radiates outward into every aspect of collective life. Jobs disappear, supply chains break, savings erode, and when people feel their basic security threatened, they become unpredictable, fear-driven, capable of both remarkable solidarity and disturbing selfishness depending on how the fear is channeled. The astrological configuration for March suggests both possibilities are active. Communities coming together in mutual support, and communities fragmenting into suspicious, protective isolation. Which outcome dominates depends largely on leadership. And as mentioned, leadership itself is under extraordinary pressure during this period. So the economic breaking point isn't just about money. It's about whether we can maintain social cohesion when economic security can no longer be guaranteed. The opportunity hidden within economic disruption, and there's always opportunity within disruption if you're willing to see it, is that March forces a conversation humanity has been avoiding for decades. The conversation about what we actually value, about whether constant economic growth is the right metric for civilizational success, about whether an economy that requires infinite expansion on a finite planet makes any sense at all. These questions aren't new. Economists, ecologists, and philosophers had been raising them for years, but they've been easy to ignore while the system kept delivering enough comfort and distraction to most people. March makes them impossible to ignore, and out of that impossibility, if we're brave enough, a different kind of economy might begin to emerge. One based on sustainability rather than extraction, on well-being rather than wealth accumulation, on enough rather than more. It's possible, but only if we use the crisis as a catalyst instead of just another thing to survive. Communication systems about to transform completely. Communication, the way we share information, coordinate action, and make sense of shared reality, is about to undergo a transformation that most people aren't anticipating. And this isn't primarily about new technology, though technology will be part of it. It's about trust, about the collapse of centralized information gatekeepers and the chaotic, sometimes dangerous proliferation of decentralized narratives. We're already living in an era where consensus reality feels increasingly impossible, where different groups inhabit completely different information ecosystems and interpret the same events in completely opposite ways. March intensifies that fragmentation, but it also creates the conditions for something new to emerge, a recognition that maybe the old model, where a few trusted institutions told everyone what was true, was never as reliable as we thought, and the new model, where everyone has a platform and misinformation spreads as fast as truth, isn't working either. Mrs. Becca Harmon sees March as the moment when the communication crisis reaches a point where it can no longer be ignored or managed through incremental adjustments. It demands fundamental reimagining. How do we know what's true? How do we verify information when traditional verification systems have lost credibility? How do we have productive conversations across deep ideological divides? These aren't abstract philosophical questions anymore. They're practical, urgent questions that societies need answers to in order to function. And March creates enough disruption in existing communication channels, through technical failures, through scandals that expose manipulation, through the sheer exhaustion of trying to navigate conflicting narratives, that people become willing to consider alternatives they would have dismissed before. Not because they suddenly become more wise, but because they become more desperate. The transformation in communication that March initiates won't complete in March. These are processes that unfold over months and years. But March plants seeds. It breaks ground. It makes space for different models to take root. Models that might include more local, community-based information sharing, more emphasis on direct experience rather than mediated reporting, more sophisticated collective discernment about what sources and voices to trust, and perhaps most importantly, a humility about the limits of knowing, an acceptance that certainty is rare, that most important questions don't have simple answers, and that navigating complexity requires tolerance for ambiguity that modern culture has largely lost. March doesn't deliver that transformation complete, but it makes the conversation unavoidable. And unavoidable conversations eventually become transformative ones. There's a phenomenon that occurs in complex systems called a phase transition, where a system that's been gradually accumulating pressure suddenly shifts into a completely different state. Water heating degree by degree until it suddenly boils. Individual droplets combining until they suddenly form a wave. And collective human consciousness appears to work similarly. Change accumulates quietly beneath the surface until some threshold is crossed. And then everything shifts at once. March 2026 looks like exactly such a threshold. The accumulation of awareness, frustration, disillusionment, and longing for something different. It reaches critical mass, and what was previously a minority perspective that the current way of organizing civilization isn't working becomes a majority recognition. Not necessarily a majority knowing what should replace it, but a majority admitting that the current model is exhausted. Critical mass doesn't mean everyone changes simultaneously. It means enough people change that the system tips, that the old normal can no longer sustain itself through inertia and institutional momentum. And once tipping begins, it accelerates. People who are hesitant to speak uncomfortable truths find courage when they realize they're not alone. People who were passively accepting conditions they disliked begin actively refusing them. People who felt powerless discover collective power when they realize how many others share their concerns. And this awakening, this recognition of shared dissatisfaction and shared desire for change, it's what March's astrological indicators point toward most clearly. A massive, widespread, cross-demographic recognition that things cannot continue as they have been. And that recognition, it's the first requirement for transformation. The danger in reaching critical mass is that awakened consciousness without clear direction can be destructive. People recognizing that old systems are failing, but not knowing what should replace them, can tear things down without being able to build alternatives. And in that vacuum, opportunists, demagogues, and power-hungry movements can take hold. History is full of examples where justified uprising against corrupt systems led to something worse. So the critical question for March isn't just whether collective consciousness reaches a tipping point. It's what channels exist for that consciousness to express itself constructively. What vision attracts people towards something positive rather than just against something negative? And whether enough people can hold complexity, nuance, and long-term thinking in the middle of short-term crisis. These aren't guaranteed, but they're possible. And possibility is all transformation ever starts with. March's 3 waves of sudden change. March doesn't deliver its intensity in one continuous surge. It comes in waves. 3 distinct waves, according to Mrs. Harmon's reading of the planetary timing. The first wave hits in the first week of March as Saturn enters the exact degree of its square to Uranus. This wave manifests primarily in authority structures. Leaders facing challenges they can't deflect. Institutions confronted with their inadequacies. Established power dynamics beginning to wobble. It's not necessarily dramatic. It might look like a scandal, a resignation, a sudden policy reversal. But the underlying theme is those in positions of power being forced to account for their use of that power, and in many cases, being found wanting. The second wave arrives mid-month when Jupiter reaches its exact opposition to the Saturn-Uranus square, creating the full T-square configuration. This is the peak intensity period, the 10 days or so when everything that's been building releases. And this wave manifests across multiple domains simultaneously: economic, social, political, even natural systems, all exhibiting signs of stress at once. It's the period when people feel overwhelmed, when the news cycle becomes impossible to keep up with, when it seems like everything is breaking at the same time. And in a sense, it is, because that's what phase transitions look like. Not gradual incremental change, but rapid, system-wide reorganization. The challenge during this wave is not to panic, not to react impulsively, but to recognize that rapid change, however disorienting, is also rapid opportunity. Things that couldn't shift before can shift now. And how we respond during these days sets trajectories that last for months. The third wave comes in the final week of March as the configuration begins to separate, but before it's fully dissolved. This wave is more psychological than external. It's the collective processing of what just happened, the attempting to make sense, to find narrative, to understand what changed and what it means. And this processing wave is crucial because the story we tell ourselves about March determines how we move forward from March. Do we interpret it as collapse, chaos, the beginning of the end, or as labor pains, the difficult but necessary work of birthing something new? Do we let fear dominate the narrative, or do we find the courage to see opportunity in disruption? These aren't predetermined, they're choices, and the third wave is when those choices crystallize into the collective understanding that guides the months ahead. Who thrives versus who struggles. Not everyone will experience March 2026 the same way. Some will find themselves crushed by it. Others will discover resources they didn't know they had. And the difference isn't about privilege, though that plays a role. It's about flexibility, about psychological resilience, about the capacity to release what's ending and reach for what's beginning. Those who thrive in transformational periods are rarely those who are most invested in the old system. They're the ones who already knew something was wrong, who already felt the limitations of the current model, who've been preparing, consciously or unconsciously, for change, even if they didn't know when it would come. They're not happy about the chaos, but they're not surprised by it either. And lack of surprise, that's a huge advantage in disorienting times. The people who struggle most during March will likely be those whose entire identity and security are wrapped up in systems that are failing. Those who believed the promises of perpetual growth, perpetual stability, perpetual progress along familiar lines. They've made life choices based on the assumption that the future will look like the past with minor variations. And March shatters that assumption, not through judgment of their choices, but through the simple reality that the ground they built on wasn't as solid as they thought. And rebuilding, starting over, in some cases, after decades of building in one direction, that's devastating. Not everyone will be able to do it. Some will cling to the wreckage, insisting that if they just hold on long enough, things will return to normal. But normal isn't returning. and clinging prevents the adaptation that survival requires. The determinant of who thrives versus who struggles comes down to a single quality: willingness to let go, to release attachment to how things were supposed to be, and meet reality as it actually is. This doesn't mean giving up values or principles, but it does mean releasing rigid expectations about how those values will express in the new landscape. People who can do this, who can hold their deepest values while remaining fluid about how to live them, they'll not only survive March, they'll find it liberating. Because transformation, however difficult, is also exhilarating for those who can align with it. It's the sensation of being alive at a moment that matters, of participating in something larger than individual survival. And some people, even in the middle of chaos, will recognize that sensation for the gift it is: personal preparation for collective upheaval. Preparing for collective upheaval when you're a single individual can feel futile. What can one person do in the face of systemic transformation? But that question misses the point. Personal preparation isn't about controlling the collective. It's about ensuring you remain resourced, grounded, and capable of conscious choice regardless of what the collective does. And that kind of preparation is entirely within your power. It starts with practical basics, having some financial cushion if possible, not all assets in vulnerable systems, relationships that aren't dependent on institutional mediation, skills that have value outside formal employment structures. These aren't paranoid survivalist measures. They're basic resilience in an uncertain world. And March's uncertainty will be less destabilizing if you've already built some buffer. But practical preparation is only part of what March requires. Perhaps the more important part is psychological and spiritual preparation. Building the internal capacity to remain centered when externals are chaotic. Practicing non-reactivity now, before crisis demands it. Developing discernment about what information sources to trust and what to dismiss. Cultivating relationships where honest, nuanced conversation is possible, even about difficult topics. Creating practices, meditation, journaling, time in nature, whatever works for you, that reconnect you to something stable beneath the turbulence of current events. These practices might seem optional when things are relatively calm, but when March arrives and calm disappears, people without those practices will be swept away by reactive emotion, and people with them will have an anchor. What emerges after March passes? March 2026 will pass. Every intense period eventually does, and what emerges on the other side depends entirely on how humanity navigates while we're in it. The astrological indicators for the months following March suggest a long, slow integration period. Not a return to what was, but a gradual stabilization into a new normal. And that new normal could be darker or brighter than what we're living now, more authoritarian or more liberated, more fragmented or more unified. The potentials exist in both directions, and which potential actualizes depends on the choices made during the crisis. This is why preparation matters, why consciousness matters, why every individual's response, however small it seems, contributes to the collective outcome. Because transformation isn't singular. It's an accumulation of millions of individual transformations. If we navigate March with wisdom, if enough people choose courage over fear, cooperation over isolation, long-term thinking over short-term reaction, what emerges could be extraordinary. Systems that actually serve human well-being rather than abstract economic growth. Communication that prioritizes truth over manipulation. Leadership that's accountable to the communities it serves. Relationships based on genuine connection rather than transactional exchange. These aren't fantasies. They're possibilities that become accessible when old structures break down and new ones haven't yet hardened. The window between breakdown and rebuilding, that's when alternative visions can take root. That's when things that seemed impossible suddenly become inevitable. March opens that window. What gets planted while it's open determines what grows for years to come. Mrs. Becca Harmon ends her reading of March 2026 with a reminder that's both sobering and hopeful. The stars don't guarantee outcomes. They reveal timing and pressure points. They show where transformation is possible and where it's necessary. But the actual transformation, the quality of it, the direction of it, the wisdom or foolishness of it, that's up to us. March will come whether we're ready or not. The planets will align whether we're paying attention or not. And change will happen whether we're conscious participants or passive victims. The only variable we control is our own response, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes one person's courage inspires another. Sometimes one community's solidarity becomes a model for others. Sometimes small acts of consciousness ripple outward in ways that surprise everyone. March asks something of humanity, but it also offers something, and what we make of that offering will echo through the rest of our lives.